psychologists, told us a lot about misery and suffering and drug addiction and schizophrenia, but there's a way in which that's just half-baked. I mean, a full-baked, what we want to know is what makes life worth living. How about positive emotion? How about meaning? How about spirituality? How about gratitude? How about accomplishment? So the intellectual idea was for psychology to have make full sense of the human condition. In many circumstances, the data are that optimistic people get depressed at only half the rate when setbacks occur, that optimistic people do better than expected on the sports field, in grades, and in many kinds of work, that optimistic people have yeastier immune systems, they're less likely to die of cardiovascular disease, and that descriptively optimistic people are generally liked better. It turns out if you take pessimistic people, depressive people, of which I'm an example, and you teach them principles of recognizing the catastrophic thoughts they're saying to themselves, this interview is going terribly, I've really lost my touch, and then arguing against it, no, Joe's been laughing and smiling at my jokes throughout, then it turns out you can make people permanently, lastingly more optimistic. The last evolutionary epoch was the Ice Ages, and the mentality that said, it's a lovely day in Philadelphia today, it'll probably be a lovely day tomorrow, got crushed by the ice. And the mentality that was a catastrophe, looks like a lovely day in Philadelphia today, but this is just superficial, and what's really coming in catastrophe is what our intellectual evolutionary forebears, the ones that survived, gave us. So we're bad weather animals, ready to see the most catastrophic. Now, that's very adaptive if you're in Bosnia during a war, or if you're living in a society in which there's death and famine and plague. One of my colleagues, Felicia Huppert, has done a massive survey of the 23 European Union nations. And she asked the question, in each of these 23 nations, what percentage of adults are flourishing? The criteria for flourishing are high amount of positive emotion, good relationships, high amount of meaning in life, high amount of engagement at work. And by those criteria, involving at least 2,000 people in every nation, 32% of Danes are flourishing, 15% of Brits are flourishing, only 5% of Russians are flourishing. What is positive psychology and well-being's long-term goal? Well, I call it 51. It is the notion that by these criteria of high positive emotion, high engagement, high meaning, good relationships, that in the year 2051, 51% of the world's population will be flourishing. Now, that's a grandiose dream, and I don't know how it will happen, but we've now been able to define the notion of flourishing. We know quite a bit about what increases positive emotion, engagement, meaning. And I think it's a great vision for the future of my science and my discipline to be part of a movement that creates vastly more flourishing around the world.